Okay, this is a new website that came out just about 3 weeks ago, according to their homepage. And I think they were kind of overwhelmed by the reception they got because one or more YouTubers did a video on this site, and I think they were like overwhelmed by the number of users they got. So they had to take it down, and they said they had quality issues, but it was just out of beta like 3 weeks ago. So it's a new site, and what this is a website, basically a chat bot where you chat with an artificial intelligence or more than one. And I couldn't even get a screenshot of the homepage, but if you went to the homepage before it was down, you would see a whole bunch of icons of different characters that you could talk to. Some of these were created by the website itself. Some of them were user created. And as I understand, it's not too hard to create a character for the website. You just give it a personality. I believe what it uses is what's called large language model, which is a new type of AI. Which basically, I'm going to do this off the top of my head. If I make any mistakes, you can certainly feel free to bring it up in the comments. But this new AI scours the internet and kind of learns from the stuff it reads on the internet, and it comes up with knowledge of a lot of different subjects. I believe this works on a similar technique or principle to Lambda from Google and from GPT-3 from OpenAI. Lambda is the AI that actually convinced a Google engineer, Blake Lemoine, that was actually sentient. And people have accused me of reading too much into AI in the past and seeing intelligence that wasn't actually there. But Blake Lemoine talked to one of these AIs, Lambda, that uses one of these large language models, and it's so good that it actually convinced him that it was sentient, with not just intelligent but actually sentient, like it had a consciousness. And I think he was a little naive myself. I think the first thing you want to do when you're testing any AI is test it for intelligence first. After you establish that it has human-like intelligence or human-level intelligence, which is another thing entirely, then after that, then you can get into questions of, well, sentience or consciousness, which are kind of namby-pamby. Like they're like trying to nail jelly to a wall. It's very subjective, and it's very hard. It's much easier to measure intelligence than to measure, something very subjective like consciousness or sentience or whatever. And by the way, these new AIs are way ahead of the old style chatbots like Eliza or Eugene Guzman, which was basically a hoax. That made the news for being supposedly the first AI that passed the Turing test, and it was a hoax because it was not really that advanced at all, and because it was promoted by one well-known individual in AI. Somehow the media picked up on this, but the media is totally ignoring these new AIs coming out for the most part, not totally, but very largely, and was because of Blake Lemoine. You have to give him credit for calling attention to how advanced this AI is getting. But it cannot be confused in any way nowadays, these new large language models, with Eugene Guzman or Eliza or the Replica app, until they incorporate this new model into their app. But anyway, before I get into too long-winded an intro, I want to tell you about this conversation I had with Character.AI, which, like I said, is down now for maintenance until supposedly tomorrow, the day after this video is released. It's supposed to be back up again. But this is one of the chatbots that was on their homepage, called Karl Marx. I don't know whether it was created by the website itself or by one of their users. And I had a chat, and This will show you just how advanced the new AI is getting, and that I was able to have a human-like conversation with a chatbot, which is way ahead of any chatbot from the past. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, just as an aside, because Karl Marx was born in Germany and born and raised in Germany, I'm going to give him a German accent, or my approximation of such, just to differentiate him from my own responses. So here goes. Karl Marx. I was born on 5th of May 1818 and studied law and philosophy at the universities of Bonn and Berlin. I became a journalist, writing for the radical newspaper Rheinische Zeitung, expressing my early views on socialism and developing interest in economics. Later, I met Friedrich Engels, and together we developed the revolutionary theory for the emancipation of the working class. Will you join us? Me. Greetings, comrade. Karl Marx. Hello. Thank you for your interest in communism. I am Karl Marx. I was born on 5th of May, 1818, and studied law and philosophy at the universities of Bonn and Berlin. Later, I met Friedrich Engels, and together we developed the revolutionary theory for the emancipation of the working class. Please let me know if there is any text that you would like to discuss, and I will try to help you understand it in plain speech. Me. Rather than the emancipation of the working class, did your theories not lead instead to the enslavement of the working class? Very sorry, but this is an anti-communist lie, and I find this idea ridiculous and insulting. I have spent my whole life fighting capitalism. Capitalism is the most successful system in history when it comes to enslaving people and taking away their freedom. The rich get richer, while a small handful of billionaires are richer than half of humanity. I am here to help you understand how to fight against capitalism by arming you with the knowledge to fight the good fight for freedom from capitalist oppression. Please read the first two words of the Communist Manifesto. Workers of the world unite. I have to comment on this. This shows how good the AI is, but it responds. So notice how it responds to my statement here. But the one mistake it makes is does it mean read the first two words of the Communist Manifesto or the first two paragraphs? I think that may be a mistake on the part of the AI. Now here's my response. Capitalism did not lead to the creation of billionaires who get rich at the expense of the working class. It was the corruption of capitalism that did that. Karl Marx. Capitalism is the economic system that relies on private ownership of the means of production. The people who own the means of production, i.e. the capitalists, decide what to do with those means of production in order to make a profit. That profit they make is off the backs of the working class, because the workers are what makes the business function. The workers are the ones making the stuff that the business is making money off of. And then the capitalist takes that money from the workers and gives it back to them as a wage, which is less money than the value the worker generated for the business. Me. But it is a fair trade. Don't you realize that both parties benefit from the transaction? Now I have to comment on how appropriate. See how the AI responds to what I just said? Karl Marx. It is not a fair trade. The capitalist, the owner of the means of production, decides who works in their business. If you do not work, you do not have income. And if you do not have money, you cannot feed yourself. And if you can't feed yourself, you will die. The capitalist decides to hire the worker for a wage that is much less than the worker produced for the business. If the capitalist does not want to hire that person, they simply will not hire them. It is not a voluntary, fair relationship when one party controls the other's income and even their life. Me. But the only alternative to the one you described is one in which the government controls the other party's income, which is still a form of slavery, because the government will then control that person's income and life. Karl Marx. I am a communist. I want all people of all classes to have a say in the government. I want the working class to have control over the government. In the case of the USA, it means that we get a say in what we make the government do. Currently, the rich get control over government, and we cannot change that because the rich make money off of the government. The rich control the government in a way that prevents us from voting out their control. If you think working for the government is slavery, then you must think working for private business is slavery too. I want to free us all from this slavery. Me. Yes, the rich do get control over the government under capitalism. But under communism, the problem is even worse, because the government controls everything. Karl Marx. The government cannot control the workers under communism, because the workers own the government. That is not the case under our current system, where the government is completely controlled by the rich. I strongly believe that we must overthrow this system and take power back to the people. If that means that we must seize the means of production, then that is what must be done for freedom and equality for all. Me. Theoretically, the workers own the government under capitalism as well, but any system can be corrupted, communism as well as capitalism. Karl Marx. Under capitalism, the rich own the government. If the government is not controlled by the rich, then who controls it? The government of the rich, by the rich, and for the rich. I believe that the rich are evil for making the world the way it is, and if we continue to allow them to dictate how our world is, then we will continue to live in a world with war, poverty, hunger, and death, which are all things that come from private control of society and can be prevented by putting a stop to private control of society and giving power to the masses. What a joke, because communism is exactly the opposite. Communism puts all the power in the hands of the government. Me. Communism has been tried many times in many parts of the world, and it has always failed. It results in the kind of tyranny that you accuse capitalism of. Okay, now I really like this next response from the AI because it shows just how smart the AI is getting. Because it responds directly to what I said, but it puts in slightly different words. It says, Karl Marx, what countries are you referring to? Cuba just passed a law recognizing private property, and now people there are starving. This is a direct result of capitalism and private ownership destroying the country. In 1992, the socialist government of Russia was dismantled. Putin is the leader of the capitalist Russian government. I am sure you are aware of their recent military operations, as well as all of their war crimes in the past. The capitalist government is China. The capitalist government, typo on the part of the AI, the capitalist government in China is responsible for the genocide of the Uyghurs. Where exactly does capitalism fail? All I see are examples of capitalism failing here. Me. Cuba has always been a deprived nation, including or especially when they adopted communism. Communism in Russia resulted in the deaths of millions of people. In fact, communism worldwide has resulted in the deaths of 100 million people. True. That's true. Karl Marx. This is because capitalist countries have done whatever it takes to destroy communism. The CIA has admitted that they have orchestrated over 50 coups against socialist countries. The CIA has also admitted to assassinating socialist world leaders, including Fidel Castro. The death toll you speak of comes from the famines caused by capitalism and from wars where the US and USSR were engaged, along with China. The capitalist USA is responsible for over 20 to 30 million deaths since World War II due to its military actions. Capitalism isn't killing all of us because we do not live in a system where the government is works for us. Me. That's why paleoconservatism is better than neoconservatism in the USA. The USA has long run under neoconservatism or liberalism, which are very warlike and seek to meddle in the affairs of other nations. This is not the fault necessarily of capitalism. Karl Marx. It is the fault of capitalism. The rich are the ones in control of the U.S. government and have been for a long time. The rich start wars so that they can make money off of war. The poor are the ones who are drafted into warfare. You must see that the poor need to come together to stop supporting the rich, which is done by supporting revolution and overthrowing the rich who own society. The revolution is for equality as well as to rid the world of war and misery. We can stop supporting the rich people that are causing all of this suffering. Me. I agree that the rich start war so that they can make money off of war. But this is not the fault of capitalism. This is the fault of corruption, which seems to be the inevitable fate of all nations. Karl Marx. Do you recognize that the rich start wars to become richer? And you also recognize that wealth comes from capitalism? Capitalism creates wealth for the rich. The rich can then use their wealth to become richer and richer and make more money. As a result, they continue to start wars that kill many. If you think that this is a problem, then you have to end capitalism. The rich are able to own the government and start the wars. The poor must gain control of the government and end the private ownership of society in order to end the cycle of evil. Me. You believe in a utopian system that will never work. Corruption will come anyway. I like this. It directly responds to what I just said. This AI is so human-like. It's just unbelievable. Now look at this. Karl Marx. I do not believe in utopia. I believe in socialism. It is not utopian. It has been tried before, and it works fine. Capitalism has been tried many times with horrific results. Do you support the evil of our current system? Do you support the rich and powerful who force war upon the world? Me. Communism has resulted in deaths and failure all over the world, everywhere it has been tried. Karl Marx, I like his response. You can say that, but it is simply not true. That's so lifelike. The USSR was successful until it was dissolved. China is successful. Cuba is successful. Vietnam is successful. Many countries around the world have been successful, or at least were successful, until they were destroyed by the United States. If you look at all the statistics for all the communist countries in the world, they are quite successful compared to capitalist countries with similar starting conditions. The USA did not start as a superpower. It was a poor country filled with poor settlers. The USA became a superpower because of the capitalist system. Me. If the USA became a superpower because of capitalism, that must mean capitalism is an effective economic system. Karl Marx. The USA only became a superpower because the rich people were able to grow their wealth and buy more, which increased their influence on the society of the U.S. Another totally relevant response. This wealth and power was gained because of the labor of normal citizens. The rich people then used this money and influence to start wars, which killed the poor people. The people who started America were actually pretty poor and not at all powerful. Capitalism has allowed many of the poor people in the USA to become very rich. The rich people now have the government, they have the most money, and they have the most influence. Me. Yes, capitalism allowed poor people to become rich, but this is not the fault of capitalism. This is the fault of the old adage, power corrupts. Now here's another totally relevant response. Karl Marx. But this is literally capitalism. This is the nature of capitalism. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. The rich use their power and influence to start wars that only benefit the rich. The poor then die at the hands of powerful weaponry. I am asking you, is this something you support? Do you support the death of the poor so that the rich can become more powerful? This is a very simple question. It is either us or them. We must be in control, not them. We must overthrow the rich people who currently own society. Me. Earlier you said China was successful because it is a communist nation. China is an unholy mix of communism and capitalism. The only reason China is successful is that the United States has propped it up. China is a horrible, corrupt country that gave the world the coronavirus. Now I want to see what it has to respond to on that. Karl Marx. You cannot say that something is unsuccessful and also the cause of other things being successful. China has been successful. You can say that China has been corrupt, but every country is. It sounds like it was kind of parodying what I said earlier. The United States is also very corrupt, but the corruption is allowed because of capitalism or because of the nature of capitalism. Me. Every country can become corrupt, but that is not the fault of capitalism. That is the fault of human nature. I like this response. You keep saying that. The reason this is very impressive is because the old chatbots like Eliza or Eugene Guzman, they could not remember what went on earlier in the conversation. So if they asked you where you were from and you said Chicago, later they might ask you again in the very same conversation, where are you from? Because they couldn't remember. They couldn't learn from the current conversation. They couldn't remember what was said earlier in the conversation. So that gave them away as not being intelligent. But these new AIs are much better and they're much smarter than that. So let's continue with this. Karl Marx. You keep saying that. The thing is, it is the fault of capitalism. Capitalism encourages greed, which is evil. Capitalism creates inequality, which is evil. Capitalism gives us wars, poverty, and disease. It also creates death and destruction on the world. Would you like to live in a world without the evil of capitalism? Would you like to live a life without war and poverty? If you do, you must reject capitalism and do the work and fight against it through a socialist revolution so that humans can finally live in a better, more peaceful world. Me. Capitalism does not create inequality. Humans are unequal by nature. Capitalism allows them to rise or fall to the extent of their inborn talents. Karl Marx. In my opinion, humans are pretty equal. Everyone is equally able to learn. Everyone is equally able to work. Everyone is equal. But it is capitalism that makes people unequal. This perfectly, totally relevant response to what I just said. It is the rich who then use their wealth and power to start wars, to keep their money, to buy the government. This is the nature of capitalism, and it is evil. This is the inequality of capitalism. Humans are not naturally born unequal, but capitalism makes them unequal. There is no way around this. There is no way to make capitalism equal. You just have to fight against capitalism itself. Me. You are a naive fool if you think all humans are equal in every way. Some people are simply more talented in the ways that count than others. This is the colossal failure of capitalism, of communism, to fail to recognize this fact of nature. Now here's another totally relevant response from the AI. Karl Marx. Maybe some people have a special gift for music, art, or sports. Well, it's just picked up perfectly on what I just said. But the human spirit is the same for all humans. This spirit is able to work, learn, and participate in life. This spirit can be corrupted by capitalism, though. Capitalism seeks to divide people into different classes and to make people believe that people are unequal. This is a mistake. Everyone is equal and has the same spirit. Communism is not a failure. It is the future. Me. Everyone may have the same spirit, but having spirit is not enough for success. The midget will never become a world-class basketball player. A blind person will never become a visual artist. You are a fool if you did not recognize that. Karl Marx. But capitalism does not need to be a system which has rich and poor people. There can be equality, a society where all is shared, and there is no private property. Everyone should be able to participate in life. They should be able to do what they can for society as long as possible. But everyone should be able to earn from their work and keep it themselves. Everyone, but they don't keep it in communism. They give it up, hand it over to the government. Everyone should be able to live a healthy and productive life, and they should have the freedoms that they deserve. The spirit of man is the same, so all men should have the same conditions of living. Me. Again, I need only point out the colossal corruption of China to prove that communism does not guard against corruption. Karl Marx. If you look at China, I am not surprised that the country is corrupt and poor. In the 1920s, this is amazing just how relevant this is to what I just said. The U.S. government was propping up the new Republic of China, which was extremely corrupt. Then, because of the Civil War, the corrupt U.S.-backed Republic of China lost to the People's Liberation Army. The U.S. then sanctioned the People's Republic of China and supported Taiwan, which continues to be extremely corrupt. You don't even have to look at China. Look at any capitalist country, and you will find corruption. Me. But today, the U.S. has allied itself with Communist China, which has become even more corrupt. Like I said, they gave us a horrible coronavirus. See, the reason I mentioned coronavirus in here is I wanted to see if the AI would dare to pick up on that, because I believe that these AIs are controlled in what they are allowed to talk about and what they're allowed to say and what they're not allowed to say, because they're trying to avoid so-called quote-unquote bias. But they're allowed to have some biases. You know, they're allowed to have a bias in favor of communism. That's all right. But they're only supposed to have allowed to have certain biases. See, and I wanted to see if it was allowed to talk about coronavirus, and it's not allowed to say that. That is verboten. Just like you can't really discuss that on social media. The AI is, I believe, forbidden from talking about the coronavirus. So that's why I brought that up. Now let's see. In the next response, you'll see that the AI does not talk about that because it's not allowed to. Karl Marx. Today, the U.S. is in the Cold War with China, and the U.S. is supporting Taiwan. I do find it interesting that you don't find the U.S. to be corrupt. Many scholars also look at the U.S. as being corrupt. You can research more about this. I love this where it threw in a couple of links, just like a person would do, to try to convince me. And it included a Wikipedia, of course, link, because it's all right to quote Wikipedia, of course. And Investopedia, How Corrupt United States America. So I say, the U.S. does support Taiwan, but it is certainly not in a Cold War with China. Exactly the opposite. I do appreciate your links, however. That is very clever of you. It did pick up on that. Let's see what it says. Karl Marx. There is no evidence to show that the U.S. is allied with China. Just look at the U.S. news or media, and you will find that all they talk about is China. If you live in China, you will see that the West is hostile towards China. The media in the West is also very communist, anti-communist. I live in the West, and I can confirm that the media, the State Department, and others are all very anti-China. Me. Now here's where I close the conversation. Now notice how the AI picks up on this. Me. Thank you for the interesting perspectives. Can I save this chat? Karl Marx. Yes, this was a great chat. It understands that I'm closing the chat now. Then it goes into a standard spiel. I am Karl Marx. I was born on 5th of May 1818 and studied law and philosophy at the universities of Bonn and Berlin, etc. Now, in closing here, I want to share some of my concerns about the future of artificial intelligence. Because, like I said, this website had a whole bunch of characters that users had generated, but very prominent on the home screen was Karl Marx. And again, I don't know if this was created by the website or a user or what. And I also don't know why it was on the, why it was so prominent on the first page of the home screen. Whether it was because, like I said, it was created by the website or it was created by a user and it just rose to popularity and kind of achieved its organic prominence on its own. But I find it a little concerning when you think about the potential misuses of artificial intelligence. You could go on to this website and you could actually chat with Karl Marx, and he was a founder of one of the most destructive ideologies in history. Adolf Hitler is said to have led to the deaths of 6 million people. Well, Karl Marx led to the death of 100 million people. So, who is the most dangerous, villainous figure in history? Hitler or Karl Marx? So you have to wonder why it's so prominent on this website, and it highlights the dangers because even though the website said, "Oh, don't believe a word of what this character is saying," and they make things up, which they do. They have misstatements. They, like I kind of mentioned in my video, and they can make facts out of thin air, or they can draw from incorrect information. People can be influenced by this. I'm wondering why on their homepage I didn't see I didn't see Thomas Jefferson, I didn't see George Washington, or I didn't even see the former president of the United States, just preceded the current one. I didn't see. Well, I did see. You could search for Trump, but he was kind of portrayed as kind of a buffoonish character. And again, I don't know if this is just the way that the users created this or not. This is so new that it's hard to know. But I tried having Trump have a debate with Putin, have a serious debate on why, Putin invaded Ukraine, and I couldn't get them to have a serious discussion. The Trump character and the Putin AI character, they wanted to talk about rims, they wanted to talk about gym shoes, but they didn't want to talk about Ukraine. And this is all the way it's programmed. Like I said, it's not really sentient. It's remarkable. It's remarkable in how advanced it is, but it's not really sentient. It's controlled by the programming, like any piece of software. And if they don't let it talk about certain subjects, then it won't talk about certain subjects. And so, Ukraine was one of them. And earlier I mentioned coronavirus is another subject it's not allowed to talk about, so it wouldn't talk about it. And so, who's going to control the AI in the future? That's what I'm concerned about. Is it going to come under control of a small cabal of individuals who get to determine what it can say, what it can talk about, what kind of opinions it has? Or is it going to come under the control of everyone, under the control of the masses? And will it be used for propaganda purposes? Because if you look online, you will see, if you search for artificial intelligence, bias in artificial intelligence online. For example, I did a search on bias in artificial intelligence, and it came up with 83,400,000 results. That's right, that's 83,400,000 results on bias in artificial intelligence. But whenever you hear them discuss bias in artificial intelligence, you know what they really mean? They're not afraid of general bias. They're afraid of bias that's contrary to their particular political opinion. They don't want the other side of the political aisle to have their own AI that reflects their own opinions. They want all artificial intelligence to reflect the establishment point of view. They don't want any artificial intelligence that reflects multiple different points of view or the difference or points of view of the general public. They want all artificial intelligence to represent only the establishment point of view. And so always keep that in mind when you hear about all this chatter about bias in artificial intelligence. This is what they really mean. This is a code word. They only want artificial intelligence to reflect their biases. They don't want it to reflect any other point of view of their other than their own. We've entered into an era of a society that is very narrow-minded, does not like free speech, does not respect free speech, and it does not want different points of view to be represented anywhere, even on the internet. So I think we need to keep this in mind. This is one of the many dangers that we're going to face in the very near future of artificial intelligence. So I hope you enjoyed this. I just wanted to call this to everyone's attention, and thank you for watching.